Hi, I'm Coffeezilla, and I, alongside some other researchers, investigated Safemoon. And we just published a 40-minute breakdown about why we think this billion-dollar market cap company, or coin, was fraudulent. And the story basically came down to the core promise of Safemoon. Basically, the money was supposed to be locked up, untouchable, and it wasn't. And I was finally ready to be done with this story when suddenly Thomas Smith, who goes by the name Papa, stepped forward to talk. Papa is the former CTO of Safemoon and probably the second most important person in their history. And he told me he was ready to take some questions. Now, to be honest, I respect the move. It takes guts to take on hard questions. And what follows is the highlights of our call together. I think we should start with the moment that I confront Papa about the team basically committing fraud. Yeah, and frankly, I mean, to be honest, I'll just be honest because I feel like you know that I'm just trying to get to the truth here. How is this not fraud?
Which part?
The part where, it starts and everything's locked up, guys. Don't worry, the money's locked up. Don't worry, we'll never touch it. If we did, we'd go to jail and get a lawsuit. And then subsequently, everybody who owns the contract touches the LP and takes money. How is that not fraud?
I think at first we were trying to do the auto locking, and then when the organization started, John leveraged to have it unlocked. So there was a lot of shifting at first.
But no, the LP was taken from before John ever got on board. It was taken from March 5th. From the beginning, money was being taken out of the LP.
You definitely ask those questions, but I don't have answers for you on that.
Well, here, I'll send you the transaction because I don't want to make I never like to make statements where people.
I know it's all right. It's on the blockchain. It's on the blockchain.
Here, I'll send you the transaction though, just so you can check for yourself. I don't want you to think that this is some kind of a thing. There he is taking 36 trillion Safemoon out of the LP on March 5th. How is this not fraud? At this time, they're saying it's auto-magically locking up for 4 years. You never have to worry. And then you guys end up with millions of dollars and the investors end up with negative 90%. I mean, you can understand the problem there.
Well, yeah, I see the problem for sure.
Okay, so Papa says he sees the problem. But what does that mean? And how much did Papa get paid for this whole disaster? That's a huge question that I've had from the beginning, and so I asked him about it. How much money did you profit from Safemoon?
The amount that I got was right around that, like the 2 million mark.
Okay, Papa made $2 million, according to him. Now, I personally think it might be more than that, but throughout our call, that's the number he really stuck to. He said he never had any secret wallets, and any other wallets were just paying lawyers, PR firms, and other groups. He only made $2 million, according to him, and he said Kyle paid him a lot of that. Oh, you got it from, Kyle?
Yeah, actually, he gave me $1 million in Safemoon at one point.
But the question is, where did Kyle get that money from? Because if you listen to Papa or anyone else in Safemoon, most of Safemoon's expenses come from Kyle's participation in the pre-sale and not the liquidity pool. Do you pay from the deployer wallet 1 trillion tokens to John, the Gabe wallet?
So the deployer wallet, we actually talked about this a lot in the early days, kind of like buried beneath everything else today now. But if you search for it, I'm sure you'll find it. The deployer wallet, the balance that was in it was one of the early pre-sale. So he threw in $300 into the launch of it.
Who did?
I don't even think that he was the first buyer. Safemoon Dev.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was out of pocket for him. Whatever came out of that was out of pocket.
This has always been Safemoon's story. The money Papa made, Kyle made, Ben Phillips made, the tokens Karoni got, it all comes from the magical pre-sale tokens. But this cannot be true because when you crunch the numbers, most of Kyle's Safemoon tokens didn't come from the pre-sale at all. It didn't even come from the tokens that Kyle was constantly buying or selling. To illustrate this, I created a pie chart to show you the proportion of Kyle's Safemoon holdings. In red is the amount he took from the liquidity pool, in blue is the pre-sale, and in yellow is the net Safemoon he purchased and then sold. So as you can see, a huge amount of Kyle's tokens came from the liquidity pool, meaning that Thomas has some explaining to do. Kyle specifically, because I know you got paid and you paid Karoni a bunch of money. So when you actually look at Kyle's LP or his Safemoon amounts, he couldn't have provided that had he not been taking money from the LP. So you guys, your payment was coming from liquidity that was supposed to be for the investors.
I mean, I really don't know anything about what was happening with the owner before I had it.
You didn't know he was taking money out?
No.
It seems like the former CTO of a blockchain project is saying he didn't know what Kyle had done on the blockchain, that he had basically been pulling money out of the project from the beginning. Now, I'll be honest, this seems hard to believe. Later, Papa admits it makes him uncomfortable, the idea that maybe some of his funds came from a stolen liquidity pool.
That's what I was told at the time anyway. You know, you got it from the pre-sale. So I'm uncomfortable with that, if it didn't come from the pre-sale.
Right. I mean, that's the whole problem. I agree with you. So I actually agree with you. If Safemoon Dev had bought it in the pre-sale and he had decided to give you guys a payout and that's how you guys made your millions, we wouldn't be talking, right? The problem is that there was an express thing that was the whole purpose of Safemoon. The whole idea of Safemoon was we're going to go safely to the moon. It's in the name. How are we going to go safely to the moon? Well, these other DeFi projects rug. We're not going to rug. What's not going to make us rug? We're auto-magically locking the LP, except no, we aren't. We're taking from the LP, and that's actually how we're making our millions of dollars.
It's definitely obvious that that stance changed.
Now, here's where our conversation takes a big turn. We've already discussed the whole I didn't realize this was from the liquidity pool argument, and here comes their next argument. Basically, Safemoon had pivoted and changed their story, and they had told people that they were going to be taking money out of the liquidity pool. But is that true?
It's definitely obvious that that stance changed. I was locking the LP myself. I was doing it.
But that stance changed. April 21st was your all-time high. You guys were still
It's like the day before that I locked the 250.
Right. But what I'm saying is, you guys were still changing the story at the time of your all-time high. So even if it changed, it's sort of like too little, too late. So many people are on this ride. You know what I mean? See, that's the whole problem with this story. Even though Safemoon eventually told people that they would be taking money out of the liquidity pool, this argument doesn't stand up because they'd been taking the money out before they told anyone. That's the critical issue. March 5th is the first time they took money out, and their official stance was still changing in April. Papa didn't seem to see this as too big of a problem, though.
We were pivoting often in those days. So we started out on a WordPress page that definitely couldn't handle this stuff. There was a lot of shit on there that shouldn't have been there to begin with.
But even your page up in April was LP. There's something about auto locking LP or LP locked on PancakeSwap for 4 years. Blah blah blah. You're talking about auto locking LP. People think you're auto locking it up. I mean,
I was not making any. Like, I never made any claims as to automatic or manual. Like, I was showing people, I was telling people when I was doing it. So we did it all together in Discord.
Right. No, I understand that. Maybe you were like saying to people who asked, but the organization as a whole had made a certain representation, right? So the organization said, okay.
Oh, back then, there wasn't. I don't even think there was an organization fully made yet.
Fine, a website. Somebody was saying that this thing's auto-locking. This is the whole thing behind Safemoon. I mean, it's in the name, right? And y'all had it in your white paper about the locking, right? The auto-locking, you did. So this is the whole problem that I'm struggling with is I just keep coming back to this feels like fraud. This is fraud. I mean, how could it not be? You guys are millionaires. Your investors are down 90%, and you guys are millionaires directly from a representation that was false.
I mean, we did tell people when we used it. I didn't make any false. We did change things a lot.
Now, honestly, this is where things started to kind of go in circles. And so I'll just leave it to you to decide how you want to feel about this. We changed it over time idea. Now, I want to move our conversation to talk about John Caroni. Did you ever suspect Caroni of fraud?
Yes.
Holy shit. Wait, what? You did win.
I left, right? Like, when he started threatening to ruin the lives of the people that have been with me for 10 years, when all that the fake articles about Jack, the way that he treated everybody on the way out. I mean,
now Safemooners are going to say, "Oh, you got kicked out."
That's what they try to say about everyone. They didn't say it about me, but I know firsthand that they were trying to prepare a statement, and then their PR firm talked them down.
Wow. Papa says he suspected Caroni of fraud based on how he treated his fellow employees and said he routinely threatened his coworkers. I continued to dig about this, and I also tried to understand more about Safemoon's true origins, specifically Caroni's origins. So, is it true that Caroni lived in a van or like trailer before Safemoon?
Yes. Where did that come from? But it wasn't really. It was for him. It was a bougie trailer. He did it purposefully.
Well, I'm just saying it's not like he wasn't rich before Safemoon.
No.
Okay, I'm just wondering. All right, now I want to show you something. What I'm about to show Papa next are the multiple $1 million payments to John Caroni from Bitmart. Because the idea is, after establishing Caroni was living in a trailer around the time that he stumbled into Safemoon, suddenly he's being paid millions of dollars? Like, how? Thomas seemed equally perplexed.
Jesus Christ, what is that?
That's just a couple of several $1 million payments to Caroni. That's $6 million right there.
When was that? That was in
June
last year.
Yep.
Yeah. See, I knew a bunch of this was happening, but I didn't know it was going to him.
So you knew somebody was profiting from like.
Well, my understanding was that it was for Safemoon, right?
This was just weird. How could Papa not have known Caroni's wallet was doing all of this? Because to begin with, he was one of the people who told me that it was Caroni's wallet. Before our call, he told me he knew it was Caroni's wallet immediately based on the last 4 digits of the wallet, 6ABE. He said in a DM, "Hey yo, that 6ABE is John," and then later told me this. How'd you also know that?
Oh no, as soon as someone else pasted it to me, and as soon as I saw a 6ABE, I knew exactly what wallet it was instantly.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you hear, I think forever ago there were a few hints to it back at the AMAs and other, like Discord discussions, where he'd talk about Gabe, and people thought it was a person, but it's really just an address.
Oh.
And that's it. So like kind of like the lead speak Gabe. Yeah.
Smart. Yeah,
not very smart actually.
Now, after telling me this wallet was under John's control, Papa would later tell me he remembered this as a corporate account.
It's supposed to be a Safemoon or a Tano account.
He then later clarified in DMs, quote, that wallet is a Tano wallet, not a Safemoon wallet, confirmed. Now, as a reminder, Tano is a company John owned and controlled. Here's the articles of incorporation. He's the #1 member. And most importantly, he's not putting the money back in the LP like he's supposed to. To be honest, Papa's surprise about all this stuff in Caroni's wallet is just hard to believe. And maybe he was just playing dumb, I don't know. His explanation for a lot was the fact that basically John ran the show and he was basically just an employee.
It's not like any of those decisions were even remotely mine. So if misrepresentations, dude, I get marching orders. You got your boss that's asking you every 5 minutes if they're tracking what you're saying, or if you're tracking what they're saying. You know what I mean?
So you felt like you were just like an employee.
Well, yeah, I was a Tano employee the whole time.
Even though you were the CTO, weren't you the CTO?
I was never a Safemoon employee. And despite having a title or whatever, it's through the management contract with Tano, which was a gigantic. That's another mess that I need to deal with privately with John.
And this idea was a recurring theme. Papa told me that basically everything he did with the Safemoon contract wasn't his idea, it was John's. This includes their Bitmart deal and how they used the liquidity pool. Papa told me that part of the way they were making money with Bitmart was a money market account. He told me they sold Safemoon to Bitmart in exchange for money. I asked them where they got that Safemoon. What does that mean? They bought it OTC over the counter from Safemoon,
but yeah, it's just a private.
How did Safemoon have that Safemoon to sell? Where did they get that from?
Right, so the migration, So when pancakes, there were a ton of migrations. The V1 to V2 pancake swap. So it's V1 Safemoon, V1 PCS, and the migration to V2 PCS. So when that happened, we had to move the liquidity over, and we had to find kind of weird ways. We had to pull liquidity in order to move it over to V2, and in doing so, there was a lot of Safemoon that came out. So there was an excess
that wasn't put in V2.
Yeah.
Why wasn't it put in V2? It just
it was given to, or well, not given, but John sold it to the I guess you could. I don't even know how to classify what you would say this transaction is, but so because the exchanges need to obtain the Safemoon, they got it from that pool, and the Safemoon was intended to be sent to the holders anyway. So we figured, the liquidity is still the liquidity.
Now, I'll be honest, the liquidity is still the liquidity is a pretty weird answer. Basically, they're saying those millions of dollars we made, it's all just part of the liquidity. It's all legit. And I had to ask Thomas about this, where he thought this money that was being generated came from. So I'm like not satisfied by this. Like the exchange deal makes no sense to me. I don't understand why millions of dollars or 55 million needs to go to Bitmart for exchange deals. This makes no sense to me. And what John was saying, apparently, is he told someone with the Bitmart deal, they were about to be put into a new tax bracket, right?
He said what?
He said, we're about to be put into a new tax bracket. Why would he say that if he wasn't going to personally profit from it?
Right.
So
that sounds like something you would say.
Here's my question. Okay, explain this to me. Because obviously we both know money can't come from nowhere. So let's say if you're just migrating the funds from V1 to V2, no money is generated for Safemoon. If you migrate V1 to V2, but you do it in that weird way where you put a buy order and you end up with millions of dollars of Safemoon, and then you sell that Safemoon to an exchange, all of a sudden money has been created for Safemoon. And you're telling me that has no price impact for the people of Safemoon? How's that possible?
The price, I guess the value impact will come from volatility, but only on the V1, V2 PCS.
The money has come from somewhere. It didn't come from nowhere, right?
Right. Yeah.
How can that be? How could Safemoon be generating free money?
Right, and the same argument could be made about an unlocked LP in John's hands. So the reason why he wants it unlocked is so that he can use it.
Right.
So he doesn't have to go through this process, likely. So that's a lot easier than just, So these other exchanges were so willing to do this deal because Safemoon comes with they've come with a lot of volume.
Yeah, they're going to get a ton in fees, right? So so again,
if he used it for something other than what he should have been using it for, the man should be called out.
So here's what I'm seeing. Safemoon is making millions. The exchanges are making millions.
Yeah.
Who's losing millions?
Right. The people who take the fees.
The investors.
That's where all the money came from.
Yeah. There it is, folks. Money doesn't come from nowhere, if you can take anything from this video. If Safemoon suddenly is making millions, it has to come from somewhere. And if it's from the LP, that's a problem because, again, that was supposed to be locked up. Now, I also talked to Papa about the fees Bitmart stated they were taking to give back to the development team to be placed in the LP. And I wanted to know, were they doing that? So the second part of this is that I got this from their website. So they say that, and I understand maybe they weren't perfect about this, but they say they charge trading fees and that 5% will be directly redistributed. Okay, we know that. That's reflections. And then it says 5% will be returned to the developers to be added back to the liquidity pool for Safemoon tokens.
Oh, yeah, that's something that happened after that's the V2 thing. So I left before V1 was discontinued.
No,
and
this is from April 2nd, 2021.
Oh,
So this
okay.
should be last year.
Okay, so that's not really how we did it though. Up until V2, when swap and liquefy was turned off. So we only ever manually transferred LP for when if the LP contracts needed to be upgraded. But still, there's a ton of locked liquidity on V1 still.
Right.
And it's going to be there for like 4 years. We've discovered a few ways that can be withdrawn still.
Okay.
There obviously people have found bugs in the V1 and V2 contracts. V2 contract can be updated. It's a proxy, so you can change whatever's behind the proxy. The trick is maintaining the balance or balances.
So you said you guys really didn't do it that way. Do you mean by that you weren't paid by Bitmart, or you didn't put whatever you were paid by Bitmart back into the LP?
Oh no, I mean like Bitmart didn't pay Safemoon to list with Bitmart.
No, I understand that, but they say they're going to give you guys tokens. So they're saying basically, look, every time you trade on Bitmart, we're taking 10% of it. 5% we're giving back to the Bitmart holders, and 5% we're giving back to Safemoon to put into the LP.
Yeah, so on each of the centralized exchanges, the way that it's supposed to work, if tokenomics are, quote unquote enabled, it simulates the V1 process where 10% fee, and then half of it goes to the market making, and then the other half goes to the holders. And obviously there were problems with that along the way because it wasn't automated. But because of that process, rather than them just collecting it and doing it themselves, all of them opted to purchase it from Safemoon because it was easier for them. They didn't have to upgrade their systems and deal with devs and all this other stuff.
But where did that other 5% go is what I'm saying. So you're saying, like, in
market
theory...
making. I have no idea what happened inside the market making accounts.
Well, that's not a very good answer. Okay, so Papa says he doesn't know what happened inside the market making accounts, but he says he doesn't think they were putting it into the LP. Again, a massive problem. As I said, I believe this is a fraud, no matter how you slice it, because of the simple premise that they said the funds were locked up, they weren't, and they used a bunch of it. Now, they did pivot this stance later, but again, we've addressed this. They had been taking money well before that, and the company had reached values of like billions of dollars by the time they had disclosed it. As for the specifics of what happened with things like Bitmart, payments to Kyle, a lot of those questions remain unanswered. I think the only person who can truly tell us is John Caroni, and like I've said, I've reached out for over a month and he has yet to respond. Meanwhile, the person who is talking, I'm grateful to him, but I find his answers less than satisfying. What do you think should be done about this?
Well, I think the first thing that happens is we go to court.
But here's what I'm saying. Here's what I'm saying. Do you think it's right for you to have $2 million, for Kyle to have however much he has, for John to have millions of dollars, all you guys to walk away millionaires, and all your investors, a lot of them are down 90%. Do you think that's fair?
Well, I know you're frustrated and you've got a lot of really good points. From my perspective, which I should probably be only answering on for that part, is I perform a service for money. I'm a dev. I've always been a dev. This is what I do. I've been doing it for a long time. So if I work out a deal with the org that's controlling me to get paid for something, I'm providing real value on my end.
Well, I guess that's their last defense. I deserve the money because I worked for it. I personally don't find that too credible. But I want to know what you think in the comments below. And that's basically it. Pump the stock. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.